Welcome back. I'm Rudabeh Shahbazi, and now more of my interview with Philip Mudd, the former deputy director of the CIA's Counterterrorism Center. 5 years ago, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence released a report on the CIA's detention and interrogation program. It concluded, among other things, that the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques were not effective, and the program damaged our standing in the world. Mudd disagrees. Well, let's talk about the effectiveness of it, how you arrived to the conclusion that would be the appropriate way to get life-saving information that would protect Americans. John McCain said these types of practices not only failed their purpose to secure actionable intelligence to prevent further attacks, but actually damaged our security interests as well as our reputation as a force for good around the world. Did this damage our reputation around the world, and did this make us safer?
I'm not sure it damaged our reputation. I think it's fair. John McCain, to be fair to Senator McCain, he was a great senator. He was one of those that was briefed. He was the only one that my colleagues remember saying, you can't do this. Other senators were not that direct. There are two different questions. One is whether this is right for America. And people since 2002, 2003 have said, no, it's not. I think that's fair. There's a different question, and this is really frustrating for people like me. There's a different question that says, did you get information that was valuable? My answer is absolutely. So many people want to say, well, this doesn't work, therefore why would you ever do it? Well, let me tell you something. If you put somebody under duress and they realize that if they lie, you're going to know it, let me tell you something. They're going to talk.
But there's also a body of evidence that says they're going to tell you whatever you want to hear to get out of this, what some might call torture and others might call enhanced interrogation techniques.
That's a rare moment. Let me tell you, nonsense. Two different categories of people. One is person X. I don't know anything about them, therefore I can't determine whether they're lying. I would agree. You can't interrogate those people using the techniques the CIA used. Let me give you a different category, and this is a little bit complicated, but I think fascinating. Category 2, person Y. You've collected intelligence on them for years. You know where they travel. You know who their friends are. You know how they communicate. You know what their role is in Al-Qaeda. You put them in front of you. What we used to use the term box them. You box them. Where'd you travel 3 years ago? And they lie. They list 6 places and skip the 7th. That lie, A, tells you something. They're not cooperative yet. And it also tells you the 7th place that they skipped, that they failed to mention, why they failed to mention that. It's important to them. My point is, people who aren't under duress lie, people who are under duress lie, unless you know a lot about the person you're interrogating, you cannot subject them to aggressive interrogation techniques because you don't know when they're lying or not. And if you do know when they lie, that lie can be really valuable. Why'd they skip the 7th city that they visited? Why'd they skip that? I think it's because it was really valuable and they want to protect it. The lies sometimes are as important as the truths.
So is your position that this worked and you would do it again?
No. There are two different questions. Should America do it? And is it something that gets America information of value? People speak under duress, as I mentioned, if you know about their background enough to box them. But the American people have spoken, and the CIA, the FBI, people think that people like me, I meet people on the street every day. They come up to me. And sometimes it feels like they think I landed from Mars. I grew up in Coral Gables. I played baseball here in Miami. I fished in the canals and got thrown out of canals.
You got thrown out of a lot of places, I think.
Really, we don't need to go into that. But my point is, the people who did this, people like me are true Americans. We grew up next to you. The people of America have spoken after 9/11, not only because they think what we did might not have represented American values, people differ on that, but also because there haven't been subsequent attacks. And people say, we're safer now, we don't have to be in that place. God forbid we should go there again. People, and let me be clear, people in my old world would say, we will never go there again. We won't do that again.
If your position was that this was effective and that this was the most effective way to protect Americans and get information, what do you do differently the next time?
Not going to do it. Not going to go that again. You say we're going to send them into an American judicial system and see whether they'll talk. Simple reason. If you're running a large organization, whether it's a news organization or the CIA, you got to protect your people. When I worked in the business from 1985 to 2010, protecting your people would have said, we're going to do whatever it takes according to what the Department of Justice says is the law and what the President and the Congress says is the policy of the United States. Since then, American people have been pretty clear. We don't like this. If you're leading an organization, you cannot put your people in a position again to have the American people say, we were okay with that in 2019. We're not okay in 2023.
But this is still part of our legacy and the intelligence community's legacy.
You learn.
The Americans torture people. These are the pictures of people.
Oh, we didn't torture people. We subjected them to aggressive interrogation. Torture means long-term physical or psychological damage. We didn't do that.
You don't think stripping people naked and having them hang in a cell in solitary confinement in complete darkness in coffins for 60 hours at a time, that doesn't cause long-term psychological damage?
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think so. No. I think it's something that Americans should question whether we should do, and I think that is perfectly appropriate.
What about suspending habeas corpus? What about not giving these people, not charging them, in some cases holding them for 5 years, 4 years at a time, taking them to various different countries to get away with things that wouldn't necessarily go over here?
Look, the American people every day make choices in the everyday world that they don't apply to terrorism. And as an American citizen, I don't understand this. Why do we subject them to different standards that we would subject a child, a pedophile? Pedophiles in my world are worse than the people I chased. Worse. You abuse a 3-year-old and you get out because we can't prove it. And that's because the American system says, unless we can prove it, you stay in jail, or you get unless we can prove it, you go. I think we ought to stand up and say, we have for generations said, a human being gets proven guilty, and unless they're proven guilty, they get to go free, and that applies as well to terrorists. I think we ought to do that, and I'm good with that.
How about Guantanamo Bay? 15 of the current detainees in Guantanamo Bay were people who were held in black sites. Guantanamo Bay is still open. What do we do?
This I would put to the Congress, not because I want to punt. I haven't punted with you for 20 minutes. I'm not going to punt, but because I think the Congress represents the will of the American people. When the Congress told me in 2003 what you're doing to al-Qaeda prisoners is appropriate, my view was they represent the will of the American people. There's a category of prisoners you would say, if we have evidence that can be presented in a military court of law, we try them. So let's say there's 10 or 15 individuals who are the architects of 9/11, the most senior members of al-Qaeda. We don't have evidence against them. Does the Congress want to say, for a small category of people, 10 or 15, the architects of 9/11, if we can't prove what they did in a court of law, we want to keep them forever? That makes me uncomfortable. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think that answer does not lie with the FBI, the CIA, the White House. That lies with the representatives of the American people. Do you want to keep people regardless of the fact that you can't present a case?
If you had to choose one, what would be the most valuable or the biggest lesson you took from this period of your life, especially now that you've had the chance to talk to your colleagues and to reflect on it, and you know the benefit of 20/20 hindsight and a changed world? What was the biggest lesson for you?
Pretty basic, and that is the power of America rests in the people that the Americans elect. They elect people to the White House who can choose individuals to serve at the Department of Justice who determine what the law is. They elect members of Congress. They elect senators. The power of the ballot is significant. When you're in a time of pressure, what the lesson I learned was, make sure you elect people who stay cool. The hotter it is, the cooler you get. And if you elect people who get hot under the heat, you're bad. That's a mistake.
Philip Mudd, thank you so much for joining me today. The book is called Black Site, the CIA in the Post-9/11 World. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks a lot.
And these are sketches drawn by the accused terrorist Abu Zubaydah himself, depicting his 4 years in secret prisons. They're part of a report put out by his lawyer, Professor Mark Denbo, and his students at Seton Hall Law School. According to the Senate report, Zubaydah was not a member of al-Qaeda and didn't have any information about the 9/11 attacks. He's never been charged with a crime and remains in prison in Guantanamo Bay. Up next, changes may be coming for workers at Miami International Airport following a CPS-4 investigation into dangerous working conditions.